My name is Lauren Holsombeck, and I am the program coordinator at the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking. I grew up in Mobile, Alabama. I come from a family of 4, my mom, my dad, and my brother. Until the age of 3, we were a pretty normal, functioning family. And then my mom got into a really serious car accident, leaving her disabled, and our family structure just looked very different from that point on. My grandmother and aunt moved in to kind of help caregiving of my mom, and so I kind of took on a role as a caregiver at a young age. I consider myself very lucky that I did have that, even though it was probably the hardest years for my family. I am grateful that I had the opportunity to have that wisdom instilled to me from a young age with my grandmother and my aunt and my mom, who were constantly kind of reinforcing this idea that we should be serving others and giving to others because we have been blessed in so many other ways. That was something that really stuck with me and was something that I kind of continued valuing into my adult life. Growing up in Alabama, we heard about the civil rights movement all the time. It was something that was taught very early on in classes. Field trips were always to these really famous civil rights landmark spots, which was so cool. But one thing I did notice was it was constantly talked about as a thing of the past, that the civil rights movement had ended and now we're living in this utopia. But when I looked around, that was not the case. I saw a lot of unfairness and prejudice and racism all around me. And I started questioning, if the civil rights movement was a thing of the past, then why are we still dealing with a lot of these same issues? And when I moved to Atlanta, that energy was still there of the civil rights movement. It was not a thing of the past. People were still talking about it, keeping it alive. And one day I decided to go to the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, big museum downtown Atlanta that really does highlight just the city's connection to the civil rights, but also the current human rights landscape and where human rights are being threatened in the world. And for the first time, I took what that desire was inside of me and that all of those feelings that I had as a child of wanting to change and wanting to work towards this more just world. I finally connected to human rights. And that's when I knew this is something that I want to work on long term. And then a few years later, I ended up moving to Denver to get my master's of social work and eventually work for LCHT. During my Master's of Social Work program, I took a human trafficking elective class. I was very interested in immigration and criminal justice and poverty and all of these things that intersected when I found out about human trafficking. It was all of these issues that I cared deeply about, and LCHT came and presented to that class. I immediately was intrigued, so I reached out about internships and ended up doing my year-long internship for my last year of my degree with LCHT. And I got to work primarily on the hotline. I've really come full circle, starting as an intern, and now I get the amazing opportunity to work with our leadership development program. So I get to work with people who were just like me, maybe in school or not in school, but have this desire, know a little bit about human trafficking, maybe know a lot about human trafficking, but don't know exactly how to get plugged in. One thing I wish people knew more about this issue is just how close at home it is. People often think that it's happening only abroad or in faraway countries, and that is just not the case. It is happening at the grocery stores that we go to or the hotels that we stay in. Until there is awareness and education around this issue, then a whole lot of things aren't going to change. And so if we can amplify the efforts that are already in place and amplify the amazing efforts that the state of Colorado is doing and our partners are doing, then we can only continue to do this amazing work on a bigger scale and reach more people and more survivors.